on or about the 17th of September 1995, a new group of 10 Bosnian Serb captives arrived at the Kamenica Camp and were detained on the ground floor of the derelict house. EMD members subjected them routinely to maltreatment amounting to serious mental and physical suffering, including beatings and the infliction of electric shocks. Furthermore, Nenad Jovic, who had been brought to the Kamenica Camp several days after the 17th of September, died either as a result of beatings or of drinking unsuitable water, or a combination of both in conjunction with the conditions of detention at the Kamenica Camp. As regards Nenad Jovic, the trial chamber was satisfied that the prosecution had proved beyond reasonable doubt the elements of murder as a violation of the laws or customs of war under count 1. The trial chamber further found that the prosecution had proved beyond reasonable doubt in relation to the 10 detainees listed in Annex D to the indictment the elements of cruel treatment as a violation of the laws or customs of war under count 2. In relation to count 4, the trial chamber made the following findings. On the 11th of September 1995, the 3 Bosnian Serb women, DRW1, DRW2, and DRW3, were brought to the Kamenica Camp independently of the 52 VRS soldiers mentioned above. The women were detained at the Kamenica Camp in a wooden shed and routinely subjected by EMD members to acts amounting to serious mental and physical suffering, including beatings as well as the infliction of electric shocks. The trial chamber therefore found that the prosecution had proved beyond reasonable doubt the elements of cruel treatment as a violation of the laws or customs of war under count 4. The trial chamber will now discuss whether Rasim Delić can be held responsible under Article 7.3 for not having prevented the crimes described above and or punished the perpetrators thereof. The trial chamber will thus examine whether, 1, there existed a superior subordinate relationship between Rasim Delić and the said perpetrators, 2, Rasim Delić knew or had reason to know about the commission of these crimes, and if so, 3, whether he took any necessary and reasonable measures to prevent or punish the crimes in question. As regards the existence of a superior subordinate relationship between Rasim Delić and the perpetrators of the crimes in Bikoshi in 1993, the trial chamber recalled its earlier finding that it was not proved beyond reasonable doubt that the perpetrators, as alleged by the prosecution, had been mujahideen of the Polyanitsa group. The trial chamber nonetheless examined the prosecution's contention that on the 8th of June 1993, the Polyanitsa mujahideen had been de facto subordinated to the Third Corps. In this regard, the trial chamber noted that there is no specific evidence concerning orders received by the Polyanitsa mujahideen from units of the ABiH. In particular, the evidence only shows that on the 8th of June 1993, mujahideen from the Polyanitsa camp engaged in the fighting against the HVO in the Bila Valley simultaneously as units of the ABiH. Furthermore, while the evidence shows that the mujahideen from the Polyanitsa camp and the ABiH soldiers were aware of each other's presence, the evidence is unclear whether the two groups were acting in concert. Thus, the trial chamber was not satisfied that the Polyanitsa mujahideen had been de facto subordinated to Rasim Delić. In relation to the mujahideen groups in general, the trial chamber was also not satisfied that these groups had been de facto subordinated to Rasim Delić. It found that the relationship between any groups of foreign mujahideen and the ABiH at that time was appropriately characterized as cooperation between separate and independent military entities rather than subordination of the mujahideen within a single military structure. The trial chamber also found that the evidence did not establish beyond reasonable doubt that Rasim Delić was already the commander of the ABiH main staff when the killings in Bikoshi occurred. In this regard, the evidence shows that the incident took place at some time in the afternoon of the 8th of June 1993, while the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina presidency elected Rasim Delić as main staff commander sometime after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Rasim Delić did not assume his position until between 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the evening of that day. In conclusion, the trial chamber found that no superior subordinate relationship had existed between Rasim Delić and the perpetrators of the killings in Bikoshi on the 8th of June 1993. Consequently, Rasim Delić does not incur individual criminal responsibility pursuant to Article 7.3 of the statute for the crimes committed in Bikoshi on the 8th of June 1993. Turning to the issue of whether a superior subordinate relationship existed between Rasim Delić and the EMD members who committed the crimes between July and September 1995, the trial chamber recalled that the EMD had come into existence as a unit of the ABiH Third Corps by virtue of an order of the 13th of August 1993 signed by Rasim Delić. The trial chamber was satisfied that from the time of its establishment in August 1993 until its disbursement in December 1995, the EMD had been a unit de jure subordinated to the ABiH Third Corps or to one of the units that had been subordinated in turn to the ABiH Third Corps. Since Rasim Delić was the de jure superior of the Third Corps, it follows that the EMD was de jure subordinated to Rasim Delić. The trial chamber was then confronted with one of the salient questions in this case, namely, whether the EMD had been under the command and effective control of Rasim Delić, as alleged in the indictment. In this regard, the chamber examined a number of different indicators which it considered suitable to determine whether effective control in this particular case existed. These indicators are spelled out in the written judgment and include, inter alia, EMD compliance with different ABiH orders, the participation of the EMD in ABiH combat operations, the mutual assistance and relationship between the ABiH and the EMD, the procedure of reporting followed by the EMD's relationship with authorities outside the Army of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the ability to investigate and punish EMD members, appointments and promotions of and awards to EMD members by the ABiH, and finally, the disbandment of the EMD. Based on these indicators, the majority of the trial chamber, Judge Moloto dissenting, found that the structure, organization, and command and control within the ABiH had improved significantly from the time when Rasim Delić had been appointed as commander of the main staff on the 8th of June 1993 until the EMD had been disbanded in December 1995 at the end of the armed conflict in Bosnia and Herzegovina. In the majority's view, when the crimes were committed in Livade and Kamenica in July and September 1995, Rasim Delić was in a consolidated position which enabled him to enforce his decisions upon his subordinates, including the EMD and its members. During Operation Faz, which was conducted under the overall command and control of Rasim Delić, the EMD breached combat orders by failing to hand over enemy captives. These captives ended up being subjected to the crimes committed by members of the EMD in July, August, and September 1995. ABiH officers were denied access to these detainees during their detention at the Kamenica Camp. Several witnesses testified that, in their view, nothing could be done to discipline the EMD since coercive measures would have entailed a violent conflict with the EMD. But this position is not borne out by facts adduced in the evidence. However,